Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 9, the penultimate, and next to last. The needs of the many universes outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one. Hey, it is Dr. Trek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland, and letting the dust settle just a bit on all the recent Trek headlines and new episodes. So instead of a hot take or a quick take, you get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Hey, look, I have been writing, editing, interviewing, authoring, publishing, commenting, witnessing, collecting, archiving, connecting, and fanning Star Trek for a while now. And I just want to say, Fisher cut bait. Okay. Fisher quest. And hey, it's not like we didn't see this coming. We just didn't see this coming. I mean, did you do what I did? Find yourself in shock watching the opening moments of this? Asking yourself, is that the Defiant class? A Section 31 badge? Derek in Dr. Blue? Married to a hollow Bashir? To Paul? Lily? Sloan? Yes! Wow. 5 legacy characters. And their voices. The Harrys with Garrett. Wait, it was already out there. But one of them is Jolene Blaylock? Whoa. Yes. Big kudos this week to our writer, Lauren McGuire. First time credit, first season as a producer on Lower Decks. It's her first Trek credit, and she'd been on, 80 episodes of Comedy Bang Bang. Did you ever see it on IFC? More recently, she had 2 seasons co-producing the animated Bless the Hearts on Fox. And then our director this week, a name you recognize, Brandon Williams. Yes, in the Titmouse way. He started as a storyboard artist for the 2nd and 3rd seasons, 3 episodes apiece. He had done 21 episodes across 5 seasons of Mike's show Solar Opposites. Then he's bumped up here, the last 2 seasons, directing 3 episodes apiece. This is his 6th as a director on Lower Decks. Oh, big things, little things. I hope I have enough room for them all this week. Let's start with a little thing, because we now have a nomenclature system for universes. Did you see the QR numbers, quantum reality, like 982.765? But not to be confused with the Dewey Decimal System in the fraternity. Little thing, the USS Anaximander. Admit it, how many of you went to Google that? No, it's not some kind of a poke at Axanar. It was a Greek philosopher, ancient Greek, an early proponent of science who tried to observe and explain different aspects of the universe, right? With a particular interest in its origins. Claiming that nature is ruled by laws, just like human societies, and anything that disturbs the balance of nature does not last long. I get it. Oh, big thing, the ring ship. Well, that's what I call it. It's the USS Beagle here. But do you know the story of that awesome craft? It's got a long Star Trek history. Now, you may know it best from the memorial wall in the motion picture. All these ships have been named Enterprise. But no, it's got a wonderful start to life. That's a rejected design among the pile of sketches Matt Jeffries first churned out in a couple of days when Gene was coming in and telling him the kind of ship he wanted for his Enterprise back for the cage. Back in 1964 is where this goes back to. It wasn't used, obviously. Matt kept it in his toolbox, recycled it for a would-be pilot that Gene and Dorothy Fontana were working on in the mid-70s that was a not Star Trek sci-fi. Didn't get used there. Wound up on the memorial wall in the motion picture, and it's had all kinds of fan backstories, and some of them semi-official, right, over the years. In fact, if you've got the old Starfleet chronology book, it was a Starliner, not a Starfleet ship, which explains its designation, XCV 330. But due to Enterprise's first flight, and as every Eagle Moss small ship owner knows, its backstory has now been retconned into, no later than the 2140s, no greater speed than Warp 2, but that still didn't keep it from being Doug Luxor's inspiration for the ringed-shipped look of the Vulcan fleet of the Enterprise era. Well, all that's fine because, say it with me, this is a different universe. So yes, welcome to the SS Beagle, Darwin's ship, and not the ship with the dead crew from the Roman planet. No. This one, though, it can land thanks to those extended legs and a cool folding system for those rings. And it uses not warp drive, but a quantum reality drive. I say again, how is that any different from the implausibility drive? But did you notice one thing we had never seen in any of these universes iterations are the interiors of the ship. And if you look here, the corridors have those half circle cutouts of the archways, just like the Enterprise era. Nice touch. Little thing. And speaking of ships, wasn't it cool to see the Defiant class and land as it was always supposed to? Yep, those folding legs were always tucked up in there in the cutaways. But I do believe that turbolift extension down to the ground to provide easy access was a new thing. Logical, but new. Little thing. And oh, the little things we learned about a mere handful of alternate universes, or QRs, if you will. You get a transporter duplicate, Troy, and you get a transporter duplicate, Riker. And, well, a transporter duplicate of Kirk was a whole century ago, just imagine. Now, clones, hollow duplicates, and Tuvix mergers don't count. Oh, big things. And a big third kudos this week to Dr. Erin McDonald, my friend and colleague, who's the science consultant across the whole Star Trek franchise. And yes, she does get advice asked and given and followed on Lower Decks too. I mean, all this theoretical science is real. Like radial tachyons? Yes, they are hypothetical particles that travel faster than the speed of light, like all tachyons, but they may fall radially into a Schwarzschild solution. Okay, moving on. Quantum entanglement, a phenomenon where two particles are linked in such a way that the state of one particle is directly related to the state of the other, as in an entanglement processor, well known to the Ops Mariners universe. And then superposition, did you catch that? Describes a quantum system's ability to be in multiple states at the same time until it's measured. So superposition is a quantum principle that refers to a physical system that exists in multiple states simultaneously based on a specific set of solutions. And then moving over to the Beagle, the unobserved gluon complex, that's a thing too. But damned if I'm going to get one sentence out of that for the layman. But then the soliton wave, I bet you remember. Now, it's not only a real math physics concept of a nonlinear, self-reinforcing, localized wave packet that is strongly stable while propagating freely, growing in force and intensity. It's also Star Trek real. Remember back in Next Generation, Geordi and the visiting scientist taking a test with a soliton wave glider? TNG's new ground. Little thing. And yes, if you, like Ops Mariner, have a vague memory of the Quapians, yeah, we've seen them barely once before, way back in Much Ado About Boimler. But as Curzon says, at least they aren't trying to drink our bones. Metaverse Moopsy gets a shout out.
Moopsy!
But I do have questions, because we finally get to see a first generation TNG shuttle, right? It's so cool. Andy Probert's original design had so many compound curves, it was beautiful, but they couldn't build it in a full-size set in 1987. That's why we got the shuttle pod in season 2. But here, animation, no problem. But is that a yellow lower deck style mission stripe for the division across the back end of the hull? For ops. Favorite lines. Flames? I think that's to Paul. I know, Mariner. I had the same reaction. And then, that's all the multiverse is. Lazy derivative remixes. And most of all, there's more than 2 dimensions? Well, of course, there's at least 3, right? Or 4 or 5. But let's poke fun at that whole prime mirror dynamic of, well, the average Starfleet layman, right? Not Kelvin or Purple yet, or and that was from a non-prime Kim. Well, if we're going to go there, I guess it's time for cast and characters. They're all amazing in this episode and all for different reason, right? Okay, let's start with the Kim crew. We got a Kim clarinet. We learned that 2 or 3 of those Kims never got home. And we know that at least one dimension out there, the entire Starfleet is dressed in the racing suit. Unless that poor Kim was snatched through the vortex right in the middle of the race. And then the legacy character, that's not really a legacy character, but he looks just like the extra in Emissary. Yeah, I'm talking about Curzon Dax, you know, Jadzia's predecessor host. And he's being voiced by Fred Taschereau. So don't feel bad for Fred because he only got one line as Shax, which is one line more than Freeman or Ransom or Ta'ana got. Although you might say our captain was here in spirit, because that Vulcan civilian crewwoman, that was voiced by Dawn Lewis. Yes, our Captain Freeman. Obviously enjoying getting her stoic, pointy ears on, at least for a few lines. And then we got Lily Sloan, voiced by the original, of course, Alfre Woodard from First Contact. Now, aside from just remembering to hold her up, because a big faction of fandom ever since First Contact has always thought that Cochrane got all the glory when it was Lily that was scrounging around for the parts in a post-nuclear nightmare landscape and probably held Zephram's hand through all those blackout binges. Well, on top of all that, she is the voice of reason here and so much unknown information. But best of all, and this is not about spellings or different pronouncings, but do you notice the biggest meta point of all in typical Lord X fashion this week? Well, Lily and her crew are all wearing Enterprise era jumpsuits, right? But do you notice that she's in the original purpley tinged version? The original, when they had to fix it for lighting and then went with a bluer blue that looked better. All the rest of her crew is in the normal blue. And we worked down this list of amazing characters, and yes, it's Garak. And, you know, at the root here, they're still playing off the old Dr. Taylor Soldier spy motif. What, that's not the original title? Well, it should be, because he is so effortless at being a doctor here. It's so great to see him in blue, right? And you know, Andy Robinson had such a hoot doing this. I mean, his acting, his voicing, it rings through the animation so well. Bravo, Andy, you're still amazing. And the same is true of Alexander Siddig here, back as Bashir, his doctorly self, even though he's from a universe where the Hollow Bashir EMH Mark II did happen because Bashir was apparently not ratted out due to his parents' genetic manipulation of him as a young man. But most of all, here, there are a couple. Of course, they came from different dimensions, which is what enables this to be set up at all. But it does. All those decades, all the fan writings, all the demands from Andy and Sid themselves, or at least the inclinations, Garashir is a thing. Now, neither one of them are prime, obviously, but this Garak does come from a dimension where he did know O'Brien and the real Bashir, and he did live on DS9, where they have a Bolian masseuse. And the fact that they met on this mission accidentally, right? And that they haven't settled on which dimension to go settle in and argue about it. It's a nice, fun little callback to the weirdness of cross-dimensional living that we saw in the first episode, remember? Then, Ops Mariner. I mean, this Mariner was so much more subtly focused, less manic, more engineering-y, right? It was a wonderful piece of nuance. Thank you, Tommy Newsom. I was so swept up in it, I noticed her voice cadence had subtly shifted way before I noticed she was even in Ops Gold. Duh. And then it's the same way with William Boimler here, right? Thank you, Jack Quaid. He's not only more grounded, but just world-weary and cynical. You can hear the weight in his voice, right? But don't forget now, amid this crew of varied universe representatives, Boimler is the one who is from Prime. he talks about what it is that we know. The same way with Brad, his duplicate. And then Bradward Boimler, what little we see of him, he has a full beard now. So I guess we're close to the end of the season, huh? But will he be the pivot point who saves the Prime universe? And yes, we've gotten to the point where we have to specify which universe. Is it Prime? Is it Mirror? Is it Kelvin? Is it Purple? Is it 982.65? And yes, I saved T'Pol for last. And yes, I know that a huge chunk of fandom is just losing their melting little hearts over getting and seeing Garrosh here finally after all these years of shipping it across all the fanfics and Andy and Sid long in favor of it, right? And hey, these are alternates, right? Like all the rest of the crew. So everything is okay. It's like blowing up Vulcan in the Kelvin. But I have to be real when I say the biggest shock and surprise of this entire amazing, shocking, surprising episode to me was T'Pol. And while it's an excellent capture of Jolene's visage there in Lower Decks animation style, I was marveling at the voice impersonation. Wow, that is subtle. That is so good. I was thinking, is that one of the regulars? Is that Gabrielle Ruiz riffing off her Vulcan template and altering it to get there? Not till the final credit did my jaw double drop. Nope, it's Jolene. And just Jolene. Now, Mike McMahon is already out there talking about that is exactly how she wanted to be credited. Okay. But hey, Jolene Blaylock is a recluse. Everybody knows she doesn't do Star Trek anymore. She doesn't talk Star Trek. She certainly doesn't con Star Trek anymore. Look, she has a very full life with her husband, her son. She does loads of charity work, especially development work in lesser developed countries. So I had to DM Mike and try to get an answer about this. I mean, it was the biggest shock of all of this whole episode to me. And he agreed, yes. Everybody said she'd never do it. Everybody said we'd never get her. But we reached out anyway, and she said sure. So that'll teach you, whether it's Sherlock Holmes, or the Kazinti, or Jolene freaking Jolene. Just ask. But just to say, in her QR, Trip was alive, and they were married for 62 years. So this T'Pol is now a widow? Because do the math. And assuming that we are in linear matching time, that this is late 24th century, well, she's got to be close to 300 years old. She looks great. Because remember, in Enterprise's time, 200 years ago, she was already 63 when we met her in the pilot of Enterprise. Oh, and to wrap up yet another case of this season's big Enterprise love, Big Starfleet nerd Archer just made me smile. But really, and I gotta wrap all this up. Did you sit there at the end thinking, how did they cram all this in to 28 minutes? Oh my God. This is, by the way, is the third longest Lower Decks episode. And boy, am I glad. The longest was about 32 minutes. But it was hard seeing Curzon die. Again. Where have I heard that before?
It was so hard for me to see him die again.
But it was equally cool for a Vulcan mind touch to carry a consciousness to survival. Like a reverse McCoy. Okay, I lied. I do have one more question. Or is it a realization? Because look, William Boimler here, okay, he is a transporter duplicate, but he's a transporter duplicate from the Prime universe. Looks like he's the only Prime universe. He's alone. Did he start the mission as a one-man crew on a Defiant-class ship? Did his rift-ripping hunting plan from his Section 31 superiors send him out that way? Because everybody else around him is an accident. They're an accidental and random pickup, right? Both the Kim crew and the non-Kim crew. Well, This is truly an historic episode. You don't need me to tell you that. Fandom is falling down in awe. And boy, as I like to keep asking, though, where were you 5 years ago on this? When all you were getting about Lower Decks was the previews and the promo, and you hadn't seen any of the actual footage yet. Yeah, I know where a lot of you were. Think how far you have come in your heart for this show. And I want to say one more thing about these amazing legacy characters, because apparently that's the term we use now. Have you heard anyone at all this week screaming about member berries or nostalgia porn? Well, I haven't. Now, why is that? Is it because everyone gives Lower Decks a pass because it's animation? I mean, it's not because these are all non-prime versions of favorite characters. I mean, that's beside the point, even with Garishir, which is essentially the reason we even got it. No, look, is it because they're in atypical situations individually and they're not back with their original gang of cast members in some way? Well, I think it's just because they're handled so expertly. And hey, it's a comedy, but no one's the butt of any jokes here. Well, maybe Harry Kim, but that is no different than Picard Season 3. And I'll say again what I said back then. All that member berries crap was not deserved then either. Hey, it was legitimate stories with characters in another phase of their lives. The only member berries is going back and recasting new actors to play those roles back at the time when we first knew them. It doesn't add anything new or insightful for them or for the times they lived in. There, I said it. Bottom line, though, is, this is a part one. It's the opening to a cliffhanger. And yet, oddly, it feels not unfinished. It feels like a complete show. It's a great break. It's just a next chapter, not gaping holes. So with one more episode left in the saga, in the entire series, will the two dimensions cross over? Will the Boimlers get to work together? Or the Mariners? Or especially to Paul and to Lynn? And then to kick us into the blackout? Holy bleep, we're all gonna die! Well, that may be the second best boiler scream ever, with special commendation for cool sound effects. And we've come a long way from, it's the Titan! But it's still not quite, Mr. Worf, fire. Oh, one more thing. And I don't just mean episode. Individual bridge crew members shaking in place during turbulence. Have we ever seen that on Lower Decks? Wow, somebody worked overtime on that, like never before. That may be the most amazing moment of Trek World animation ever. Okay. I think that's a good place to sign off on this second opinion. Well, that's what I thought. What did you think about Fisher Quest? Wow, right? I can't wait to hear from you. Okay, and while you're at it, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hey, like and subscribe and hit the bell and do all the things, right? It'd be a great way to boost the signal, and I dare you to subscribe for some sanity in Star Trek. Hey, look, most of all, if you appreciate the Dr. Trek point of view and you like our Trekland philosophy, I invite you to go over and check out all of our live events, our Portal 47 backstage monthly package, hey, my Trekland day tours of location sites around LA, and sure, the podcasts like the Trek Files from Roddenberry, our live show on Tuesdays, Trekland Tuesdays Live, Cadet Alice and Dr. Trek Watch Prodigy, all of it is over there at LarryNemecek.com. Plus our TeePublic store. Get Christmas gifts late and our cameo art too. Most of all, it's all there at LarryNemecek.com. And I will see you back here for the finale next week. Trek well, everybody.